action for tonight's work session is about our big grants and building improvement grants. And I'm going to turn it over to our assistant city man. Nope, I'm going to turn it over to our economic development coordinator, Miles Glowacki. You're welcome. No. No. Can you guys hear him? Is it me?
Maybe just have to hold it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, now you're good.
The agenda for tonight is we'll go over the purpose, the background, program objectives, and scoring rubric. Talk about a minimum scoring threshold, program eligibility requirements, and then take questions and comments. The purpose of the work session tonight is to discuss changes to the building improvement grant program. We heard feedback at the last urban renewal session, and so we're bringing changes before the board. What we heard was to create a clear connection between the big scoring criteria, the 2040 vision plan, and the URA plan. Consider using a scoring rubric to incentivize projects that create housing in the town center and increase assessed value, and create a scoring methodology similar to the RFU process that assigns higher weight to objectives of importance. And then EDC also had a comment that they'd like to see some kind of financial viability for the project on the applicant's part. The statement of purpose in the urban renewal plan is to further eliminate blight and blighting influences, improve the utilization of land within the area, encourage private investment and job creation, and increase the taxable value of the property. These are the objectives of the URA plan related to the building improvement grant. Read them up there. Create a program to reduce development costs, assist business retention and expansion efforts, and encourage a mixture of land uses, including retail, office, and housing along the corridor.
Like that's the whole oh. How I put it, we'll just test. Well, don't you think Stephanie? Yeah, I think we just keep going. Sorry.
Okay. And next slide, please. I'll turn it over to Kim for this portion.
Thank you, Miles. Mayor, members of council. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about an overarching framework for how the objectives can then tie to the URA plan and then the 2040. And then we'll be going through each objective and how it can be measured in some detail. So at this stage, thinking about that overarching picture, and then we'll go into detail later on. And so what we worked through, and Miles and Jesse and I, is linking all of the statements that Miles just went through. So all of the statement of purpose and all of those objectives that are related to the building improvement grant, and creating program objectives that link up to those. And so that's what you'll see on the right-hand side is if it's a statement of purpose or a specific objective and how that ties into a possible proposed program objective on the left-hand side. And so we have 7 program objectives. These are not ordered in any sort of priority other than they roughly follow the order of how they're presented within the URA renewal plan. Next slide, please. Next up, we went into the Vision 2040 plan and identified all of the 2040 actions that are related to the Building Improvement Grant Program. There were 6. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. Sorry. And then we went, previous slide. Oh, there. So then we went and did the same exercise. So attaching each of the Vision 2040 actions with the proposed objectives. You can see that some actions tie to multiple objectives and some objectives didn't have an action that directly ties to it. Next slide, please. And then we combined all of these together into one total slide. Wait 1 second for it to get pulled back up. So on the left-hand side, you'll see again that we have the objectives. The middle is the URA statement. And then on the right-hand side, the 2040. And then we did reorder these objectives. In the ones that tied the closest to the URA or 2040 is in, say, the first item, encouraging construction of housing mixed-use development, ties to 3 different sections in the URA plan and 3 different actions in 2040. Down to the bottom of encouraging private development, encouraging preservation that tie to the URA, but don't necessarily have a strong connection to Vision 2040. And next slide. So these are the policy questions we're going to ask at the end of this particular section, but want to have these in mind as we're going through is, do these proposed objectives meet the goals of the board? And are there any proposed objectives the board would like to remove? So those we'll come back to at the end. But as we're working through each objective, we're going to be talking about the metrics and the measurements that are involved in it. And we're going to ask for comments on each of the proposed metric or each of the metrics that are proposed for each of the proposed objectives. A lot of me using the word proposed in one presentation. Next slide. So here we talk about encouraging construction of housing and mixed-use development. It's measurable in a couple of different ways. And so this would be the criteria that would be given to both the EDC as well as the URA board when asked to score on this particular item. The number of housing units, as well as if it includes a conversion of upstairs or other vacant spaces to housing. And this is where we go back to that third policy question of if there are any comments on the proposed metrics, if there's anything that you would like to add, remove, or amend on this objective. Great, next slide. Looking at retaining and expanding business, this has several different ways that it could be measured. Oh, previous slide. There we go. So number of permanent jobs created if the project adds commercial space, increases business capacity, and there's 2 different ways I want to acknowledge that business capacity could be increased. One is by increasing employment, but 2 is by increasing production capacity. It's the idea if you get a better, faster oven, maybe you can produce 500 of something instead of 50 of something, doesn't necessarily add employment, but does expand the business potential, as well as if the project could retain a business that might otherwise consider leaving Forest Grove. Any comments, questions on this objective and these metrics? Great, next slide, please. Next one being to increase taxable assessed value. This was an item that came up during the last work session, measurable by whether the improvements are likely to increase taxable assessed value or in the percentage of the amount of improvements that are likely to increase taxable assessed value. We've seen in past projects that they include a number of different maintenance, investments, repairs to a structure. Some of those may increase taxable assessed values, some of those may not. For example, if you're replacing a roof, windows, but then you're also doing a structural remodel, the structural remodel likely to increase taxable assessed value, replacing roofs and windows, not as much. And here we've included some of the ways that you're likely to increase taxable assessed value, as well as improvements that are unlikely to increase taxable assessed value. Questions, comments, or suggestions?
Councilor Schimmel.
A context question that may come up in the end of the presentation, where not scoring in one particular area doesn't preclude an application. It's just score within that category. Because I think it'll come up again where if a beautification may not score in a tax assessment, but
it would be likely to, yes. And so this is to the idea around kind of this metric and these scoring rubrics is that all projects would be scored on all criteria. And so even if a project maybe scores very low in this particular category, because they might score very high in some other categories, it may offset their scoring. So it's an opportunity for a variety of different projects to all achieve comparable scoring. Does that answer your concern? Okay. Next slide, please. Another goal of the URA to stimulate private investment, 2 ways to match, to measure, one being just a city to other investment match, so thinking about that ratio. We did see that with at least one project in the latest round where their match percentage was greater than 1-to-1 because they were stimulating so much private investment, but then we would still require that 1-to-1 match. Another measure would be the dollar value of total investment. So higher investment is creating a higher private investment, higher dollar project is creating a higher dollar investment, and so thus it would score higher in this category. Next slide, please. Eliminate blight and blight influences. And here I just want to make a note that a lot of jurisdictions are moving away from the language around blight. It is specifically called out in the ORS. It's used in our urban renewal plan. The major jurisdictions, and you'll start seeing this in some of our future communications, is moving towards a more positive, making improvements, making building improvements rather than reducing blight, removing blight. Just a change of language that you might expect to see in future iterations of this proposal. And this would be measurable in a variety of different ways. And these are the things that are defined as blight regarding ORS. So safety, deterioration, inadequate facilities, any project that addressed some or all of these categories would score higher in this category.
Would we consider adding maybe reduces vacancy? I think that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we can even add that under building utilization.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor.
Yeah, that's a good point because, thank you. And just to expand on that, because it's just because a bunch of boxes are being stored in there, that I guess it wouldn't be considered vacant, but it's not very active.
Right, and we want to improve that activation of these businesses, absolutely. And next slide. The next two are areas that we'll go into a little more detail and that they're kind of more yes/no questions, but still important and still things that come up in our URA plan. One being encouraging the private development of public amenities that support residential uses. And this is this idea of creating a public walking path, a bench, a green space, or other sort of public gathering area as part of a project that is being stimulated by private investment. So what is this doing as a what else is this project doing for the community outside of what it's creating for the property owner? And next slide. And the final proposed objective is encouraging the preservation, conservation, adaptive reuse of historic resources. This is if a project improves a building registered or recognized as a historic resource, or if a project improves a building of a certain age or older, is how that could be measured. Again, more yes/no categorizations rather than on a scale like many of the other ones are. Great, next slide. We go back to these policy questions from 8 slides ago. Do these proposed objectives meet the goals of the board? Does this overarching framework meet the goals that were set out in the last work session? And are there any objectives that the board would like to remove from this proposal that you don't believe meet the current goals of the URA board?
I have a quick clarification question.
Yes.
Did we, instead of saying eliminate blight and blighting influences, do we want to change that wording? I mean, you had mentioned that earlier, that the objective maybe, and then piggybacking off Councilor Falconer's, like activating, building usage, or?
Yes, so if there's council consensus, I'd be happy to both change the eliminate blight and blight influences to a more positive objective, as well as adding reducing vacancy or increase activation of spaces to that criteria.
Is there council consensus to do that?
Yes.
Councilor Gustafson, go ahead.
On the encourage of construction of housing and mixed use development, is there any way that we can, or does it even belong here, put like 10% low income, something so that we make sure that we have both low income and affordable housing?
So this is an interesting question for the board. Is we did particularly not include any Vision 2040 goal related to affordable housing because that is not an item that's called out anywhere in the URA plan. So that would, if we wanted to start prioritizing something related to affordable housing, we would need to make an amendment to the URA plan.
Okay, thank you.
Is an option.
Is there any wish from council to do that? Councilor Falconer.
I guess I would just make the remark that I think affordable housing is definitely a very important part of the mix. I don't think that I would be interested in requiring it in the criteria yet without a very robust conversation about how that impacts the goals of the plan. Because I think that market rate as well as subsidized housing are as a mix. Those things are important. I think there's a whole lot of study out there, in Portland just sort of learned this lesson the hard way, that like inclusionary zonings, requiring 10% or some required percentage can actually backfire on a city, and you end up getting less housing and less affordable housing when you do that. So I think I think it's a really valuable conversation we need to have. I think it's a big conversation we need to have.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilor Schimmel.
I'd concur, and we have affordable housing and as part of our priorities. And I think that where I would align with Councilor Gustafson is that in that separate strategy, there's some approximation to down in that separate priority necessarily.
What I'm hearing, and I think Councilor Gustafson said it too. It's like just making sure when we're discussing this, it's a separate thing. This is a priority, but for right now, it's not part of this plan for these grants. Okay.
Thank you for that direction.
Yeah, understood. And I know when Councilor Falconer mentioned it backfiring, I know it's actually been successful in other areas, so it might be regional as well, how successful it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council. Any other comments on the objectives, or is Council direction to move forward with these 7 objectives? And we'll move into how we would define the scoring in the next step of the presentation.
Go ahead, Councilor Falconer.
I don't remember the order of the slide, so I just want to come back to something real quick on a previous slide.
Mm-hmm.
On the chart where you have everything combined, you've got the objective, and then you've got this one, thank you, the URA and the 2040. I wanted 2040 under private development of public for potential uses.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if we might consider including action 22 under 2040 under the connection, which is explore opportunities to welcoming age. It doesn't specifically mention private investment, but it also doesn't exclude it. And so I would like to, as much as we possibly can, interpret the wishes of the community in a way that can inform, because I think that you can probably find, and I would encourage us to for historic, I bet we can find verbiage doesn't perfectly align if we can fill that out so that they can see that sort of feedback loop. Okay, this is how we do.
Absolutely. Thank you for that feedback.
Sorry, my mouth is full. Councilor Gustafson.
Regarding the 20,000 minimum amount, and forgive me, while I was off, you guys might have already discussed it, but there's several building and business owners who have expressed that is too high for them to match. Has there been any thought, have any of you thought about maybe bumping that down a little bit so that match isn't so difficult to reach for people?
Counselor, I think you're just a little bit ahead of our slides, but we will definitely come back to that eligibility.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No worries.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the objective? All right, moving into the scoring rubric. So we received direction from council to look at doing a weighted RFP style scoring rubric. Using that framework, there are usually about 100 possible points. And the primary scoring concept is this idea of weighting, in that some items that we consider more to be must-haves receive a higher point total than items that we think of as nice-to-haves. Just kind of a clumsy way of saying it. But if the board has particular items that they want to target, we can add more points to that to hold that objective a higher weight. Next slide. we're coming back to this idea of preference points. So in all honesty, staff considered whether or not to bring this idea forward, but this idea that there's nice to haves that are a lower priority from council, but are still important items that serve the purpose of both the URA and the 2040 plan. And it would still be nice to maybe reward those projects with a small number of preference points, similar to something like how we might use veterans preference or how we might rate COVID firms on an RFP scoring process. This idea of it's a yes/no qualification and it's a 5 additional points. So it's something that we consider, and we'll have an example on the next slide of how this might work. So these are the 7 objectives. They're listed in the same order as they were on the previous slide. This totals up to 100 points, 25 for the first, 20, then 15 for the next 3, and then those 2 bottom categories that are a little lower priority have a fewer ties to both the URA plan and the 2040 plan, and are more of a yes/no criteria, would each be 5 points. This is an example, and would love council feedback and discussion.
Go ahead.
Well, the only thought is other outside sources to assist the property owner in the match. For example, there's Main Street money of different varieties, maybe half a dozen different programs at the state and national level that may mirror some of this, particularly on the preservation side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, their scoring would be high on preservation in particular, but that lends itself to a business owner supplementing their match. So that's just, I don't know how that translates here. That's just the outside, catalyzing outside money is going to boost the project.
And I think that falls in even under this idea of project feasibility, financial feasibility, and that's where that eligibility requirement can kind of come in.
I might be able to add.
Counselor Gustafson. Oh, sorry. Hang on 1 minute. Counselor Schimmel and Counselor Faulkner are done.
So
Well,
if,
I
don't know. You're fine. Okay, go ahead. But also make sure.
Yeah, I was acknowledging. I don't exactly know how it fits in here. I think this is an exceptional step forward. Just when say the Downtown Association partners to catalyze some outside money, or the business owner does that directly, that there's that criteria that factors in. And so I'll just have, I guess when we go through the next cycle.
Jesse's dying
got an
to,
answer.
he's
Well,
dying to talk.
that's okay. I might be able to provide an example. So if you look at the stimulate private investment, in this particular example, it's 15 out of 100 points. So let's say that you have 3 proposals and you are scoring the private investment, and one of the measurements for private investment is the city money or the URA money compared to the other investment money that may come in. If you have a project that's leveraging $5 to the $1 that the city's putting in, they may get a 15. If you have one that's leveraging 3, they may get an 8. And if you have one that's 1-to-1, they may get a 4 or something to that effect. But that is where that calculus would be done, is in that weighting criteria. I think what we're asking as part of this kind of rubric is we would have those terms defined based on those previous slides that we kind of went through. I think what we were looking for on this was just generally speaking, how many points do you want to assign to each category? And then within that category is how many points you would give to each proposal, if that makes sense.
Okay. Are you, Counselor Gustafson?
I was just wondering if we wanted to add a line for that. I mean, I personally don't think we need to. That whoever is filling this out has applied elsewhere or has obtained a grant from another organization or grant process. Is that going to give us any value?
Go ahead, Counselor
Anyone?
Faulkner.
I do think that I agree, Councilor Gustafson. I don't know if we need to add another line, but I do think under each of these, when the applicant is filling out the application, and then also when the EDC is evaluating it, and then when we are as well, I do think it's helpful to have it sort of like spell, what those either those examples or specifically what that means, because I think a lot of times like something like that statement is sort of left to interpretation of the applicant, and then we get an application that I don't think we, could sort of be argued, both ways, and I don't think we've really done that, but I think we could if we had
And
to.
I completely agree, and I think we're a victim of how many slides I can fit on a PowerPoint. And so this would not be the final rubric, but I think what we would have designed in the final is all of those metrics that we just went through in each of these boxes, so you know exactly what you're being measured against. To your point,
And the applicant is like required to check a box.
Yes.
It's required to show. Yes,
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's a rubric, rubric, in my classroom, right? You have the measurable things, and I think it doesn't need to be but 25, the max points is like, this is an exceptional project, right? This is like maybe above average and then does not meet. But for me, I really, really like this. I think that I like the weight of it. I think that you really listened. I think staff really listened to what council said and brought back a really good product. So I think, I really like all of this a whole lot.
are there any amendments to any of the point scoring? Thank you. And any amendments to any of the scoring or any of the weights, other than more clearly laying out what the metrics are in the final draft?
Yeah.
I just say let's crank it through another round, the next round, and then
I do also think too, on the scoring rubric, that they, like, when they fill out the application, they should self-score. And then there's always, it can be like, is there anything else that about this project that you think the committee or the board would need to know that would help us score? Like, right, is there any additional information? I think that's kind of a catch-all for if someone does have matching funds, or this is why it came to be, like, because at a certain, I would imagine we haven't been in a situation where we've had to tell somebody no. But I think that that's going to happen. And so I just want to make sure that we can stand on business of like, this is all the work we've done, and this is how we came to this decision.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think that's a really great transition to the next slide. As long as there were no other comments on the scoring rubric, moving into this idea of a minimum score. So we have not had the issue yet where we've had less money than we've had requests. But as this program becomes more popular and is taken advantage of more, that is something that we are trying to get ahead of, is this idea of, well, then how do we set a floor, so to speak, for point value for what types of projects we want to fund, both as we receive more projects than we have funding, but also if we have another year where we have less projects than we have funding. For example, staff recommendation would be to score, to set it at 50, set it at the halfway bar of points.
So the question first, council, is, do you think there should be, let's just start, do we think there should be a minimum score that a project must score to be considered? I'm going to start. I mean, some people are thinking, I think yes. I think that now that we have the measurements, the objectives, the measurements, and we want to improve like our downtown or this urban renewal agency area, I think it's important that we know it's going to meet these objectives. And I think that by saying there's a minimum score basically tells us that it's going to do some of the objectives. I think that if something doesn't score at least half the points, to me, that score represents a question of if it's going to improve, if it's going to increase taxable income, if it's going to be doing the things in our plan that we want it to do. And I would rather wait, even if we don't fund a project one year because none of the applications scored, and be able to have that money for a project that would score better. So that's my take on it. Councilor Schimmel.
yeah, I can agree. I'd say yes, and I think my experience with the ADC is the quality of the application that isn't always commensurate with the value of the project. Does that make sense? That the applicant needs help with articulating it so that it scores rightly, as opposed to scoring the quality of the application. So I guess there's maybe a tangential thing that there's a workshop where business owners could participate in to help them out, or if we do an RFP for architects, there's a series of architects who know the area and such that they can be referred to. Just or the design grants become, maybe we bump the design grant maximum up so that they get a better design proposition to put into an application, because 5,000 doesn't do it to an application. So it'd just be something to supplement the minimum for to improve the business owner's experience and opportunity.
And Counselor, and we will definitely consider how we can better engage with the business community going into that next grant cycle.
So is there consensus on having a minimum score? I haven't heard some of y'all, but yeah. Okay, heads are nodding. So there is consensus on that.
A specific minimum?
Although if council does have any direction on a specific
Yeah, so
threshold.
the first question was, are we in agreement that there should be a minimum score? And I heard yes. So now the next question is, what do you think that minimum score should be?
And you already have, you were going to use a scoring of 100? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it's 100 total points
Okay,
in that scoring rubric.
okay. I just wanted,
Counselor Gustafson.
I think I don't really know if I have a preference, but I think whatever we do, if between say 25 and higher or 50 or higher, we should err on whatever side we think is preferable for if in the future we need to adjust that. So if it's easier for us to adjust it down, if we find that 50 is too high, that's great. If it's easier to go the other way, maybe we want to start at 25. So it's just a thought. I don't know if it would make any difference.
For me, I just think I think 25 points is pretty low, and the point of having a minimum threshold is like elevate the return on investment, just to be blunt. So I'm happy with 50. I mean, I think that's a fair. I don't think that's too high at all.
It's kind of low. I mean, 50 is not even a passing grade on a paper. I mean, in all reality, and they're looking at getting money from the city to help. I mean, it benefits both people, the city and them. Is that? I would go with at least 70.
Any discussion? So any discussion on the number? We have 50, 70. Go ahead, Counselor Faulkner.
I was thinking also that I thought 50 was too low. I mean, I understand it's the first time, and I understand it's like we got to start somewhere, but I kind of agree that it's not really a passing grade. 70, maybe 70 is a little too high for our first go at it. Maybe we can split the baby and go with 60.
Okay, so I'm hearing 60 now, and then Counselor Gustafson, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Yeah. So again, pick one so that you can go down or go up easier, whichever one is what I'm mentioning. But I'm supportive of the 70 as well.
Well, so that we
I agree with Councilor Marshall that is a really, really good point.
do we. So then we also heard maybe 60. Would you? I guess where are we at? I know, and I think here's as someone who so we have weighted grades at school. Proficiency is 70 in the 70% column, and then career, like daily assignments, goes in 30. But it is a tricky and a slippery slope, because if you already have the weighted, right? You already have the weighted in the score of 25 points and 20. And if someone doesn't hit that, then, and you have too high of a minimum, it's going to be hard for some projects to pencil out. I mean, that's just my take as a teacher, and I know it's not the same thing, but just doing rubric scoring. So I don't know. Go ahead, Counselor Schimmel.
Well, keeping with the education language, if we, likened a young thriving business to having an IED or the IED, or basically, if we're going to supplement the score with a robust outreach and assist and referrals, that I think is prudent to help them strengthen the scores above 70. So I think if there's that intention, then 70 can work.
What's staff's recommendation? What do you guys think? Or what have you seen from other municipalities?
I am thinking about, if we can go back one slide, that these bottom two categories of 5 points each, most projects are unlikely to hit them. And so that really hits the ceiling at really 90 with some bonus of 10. So I agree with maybe 60 being a good middle ground.
Yeah, because then that's 90, and then they.
Way too low, but 60 would be a good starting point.
Okay, I'm
Very
hearing this
especially-
has been a good, rich discussion, and I'm hearing 60 is the number. Are we? I'm seeing head nods here, and sorry, Counselor
Nope.
Guston, I can't.
Nope, yep.
Okay, cool.
Yes, yes, yes.
Sounds good. So there's going to be a minimum threshold, 60 points.
Yes, and thank you very much for all of the feedback. We will have a updated rubric as part of the upcoming resolution. And now we're going to switch gears into program eligibility. So next slide, please. And one more. So this is the very long list of eligibility requirements that currently exist for this program. I can go through them all out loud, or if folks just want to take a second and read through. And the question for council is if there are any eligibility requirements you would like to add, remove, or amend. Also noting that on the next slide, we have 4 staff recommended, or at least want to have council consider for additional program requirements.
Question on property application must be building owner. No, locally owned or locally owned franchise. So with that, it said like, I know Miguel says the building, I don't own the building, somebody else does that doesn't live in Forest Grove, but it is. So how would that, like that wouldn't be eligible?
It
Or that
would be eligible because it's the category right above that. So applicant must be building owner or a tenant. And so as the tenant, if you can
But it
provide a
has to be
notarized
approved
letter
by the
by the
itself.
owner, yeah. But then you are eligible.
Okay.
Okay, any questions? Go
I
ahead,
had a question.
Okay, Counselor Guston and then Counselor Faulkner.
Okay, so, and this might not matter. I think we had a conversation at one time, maybe it was last year, about situations where the property owner, a building owner, gets that grant from us, does it all up nice, the value skyrockets for them or whatever, and then they sell it. And if I remember right, that conversation ended with, it still increases the tax assessment value. And so we were okay with that. And the assumption is that the building is going to be used shortly, or in a situation where it can be used shortly, or at least have a plan. For building owners that building isn't used, what if they receive a grant and they continue to sit on it? What do we do then? Is there Do we need to see a plan for, use benefits before we approve that, a phased plan?
Counselor, I appreciate the question. And one, it does still increase the taxable assessed value, but we also are asking in that application for several kind of pieces of proof about how that building is going to be used, including retaining and expanding a business and encouraging construction of mixed use development. So I believe that might be captured within the program objectives.
Good enough.
And if that addresses your question.
It does. It does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Faulkner.
Do we think the language is strong enough on project will likely increase the taxable assessed value? I really appreciated the chart that you have that sort of breaks down, likely or not. And then there's some that was like, maybe. And I don't love the maybes so much. I want a little bit more assurance on this one, and I'm wondering if council might have some thoughts. Or staff.
Yeah, I think it's tricky to peg down exactly what will increase assessed value. And assessed value can also happen at the sale of the building. So it may not be triggered, this investment may not trigger assessment until at the sale, but it may increase it quite a bit. So I think that's important to think about too. The chart is helpful. I called the county and tried to ask them kind of how we would do this, and they didn't have great answers. So knowing exactly what triggers assessed value is kind of project beyond that chart.
Unfortunately, squishy area of this process and project.
Go ahead, Councilor Schimmel.
If we're done with that particular question, I want to circle back to Mr. Gustafson's comment. I think it's a prudent one to ensure that we're very explicit about any covenant that show up in the contract itself. Because where a property does exchange or get sold, that any covenant could be a barrier to a sale if the prospective buyer doesn't want to accept that. So I just want to make sure that's clear, because that shows up typically on public money from the state. There's covenants that oftentimes either delay projects or become a barrier because the current owner doesn't want to have that burden of passing on that covenant. So if we're going to have any covenant, we got to be real clear about those. Those are clearly laid out in the contract.
I do not believe our current contract requires any covenants. I think it's under the assumption that if the building does appreciate that significantly in value and then is sold to a new owner, that new owner would want to recoup the value of their investment in that new building by utilizing the space. And I don't believe we're planning to add any covenants unless you would like to suggest that we do so.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting. I'm actually, I would dissuade us any covenants because they could end up being a barrier to the very economic development that we want to promote. Because if the current owner has to sell because they're in debt, we don't want the covenant to be a barrier to the. So I think we can encourage that, but I just want to be careful we're not writing in covenants that end up becoming.
Understood.
So on this slide, are all of these requirements a thumbs up? Okay. So then there's some that staff wanted to add, and we're going to go.
Yes, 4 proposed eligibility requirements. So one is to establish a minimum project cost threshold. Staff does not have a recommendation. 20,000 is put up there as a example. We did receive some lower value projects in this latest round. I think the lowest was maybe 16,000. Is that right, Miles? And then projects going up to 300,000. So we saw quite a range. Second one would be to restrict funding from being used on portable assets. This meets those URA goals of trying to increase taxable assessed value and establishing business and all of those requirements. Require the funding be used for a building improvement. I believe this might be an oversight, that it's not explicitly called out in the current program eligibility, although it is can be inferred. And then the fourth, and this was a EDC request, is must demonstrate financial feasibility either through some sort of financing plan, a letter of credit, a showing of having the capital, or having additional grants from another work.
Can I ask a question about the first bullet? Instead of doing like a minimum, can we do like a percentage based on what they're asking for? Because am I understanding that correctly when you said that and I think some projects ask for a 16.
The project was $16,000 total, so they asked for 8,000. We're suggesting that a project that small wouldn't be considered. So a minimum project of $20,000, 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
But we are not asking or recommending or discussing here changing the match. It would still be.
Okay. So you're saying that this project, the minimum, so it could not, and no projects below 20,000, but that was just a number.
Would be, yes, just a number.
So it's any number that, okay.
And Mayor, just to clarify, that number does include the match. So the cost to the property owner or the business would be 10,000,
10,000.
and then
Got
it
it.
includes the other 10,000.
Yeah, that's why I was like getting a little. Yeah.
Total project.
Okay. Councilor Gustafson, I saw your hand come up and then pop down. Go ahead.
It was, and I was about ready to put it up again. Jesse answered my question, so thanks, Jesse. I would still, just based on conversations with downtown businesses, I would request that it be dropped to 10,000 total project. $10,000 can be a project that does help them, and that's 5,000 less than they have to provide.
I guess I understand what you're saying, and we definitely want to do what we can to help businesses downtown. But if it's a building improvement, then I don't see it I don't see it being less than 20,000, because I mean, based on the applications we've seen, the ones that are smaller amounts tend to be more on portable assets than on building improvements.
Well, what about the people that have financial grant requests that they've put in and they haven't received yet? I mean, I don't know. I still hold by that just because of what I've heard from people. It's their experience that I'm drawing that recommendation for. So I hold to that.
Okay, Councilor Schimmel.
I think it's prudent to consider that the caveat of external sources being on different cycles and that don't line up with one annual cycle. So that's an important factor in having a viable application that meets the score. Is if they need to demonstrate that the money's committed, then those misalignments can be months apart. So that's just a consideration, and maybe we consider a more dynamic cycle if it makes sense. The only other consideration was we also have the storefront revitalization grant, which is the lower amount, and I don't recall if that 116,000 was a storefront. No. Okay, so. I'm sorry.
I was going to answer your question. I think it's 5,000.
Well, that's the design grant, but there's a revitalization.
$10,000 storefront of this project that we're referring to internal project. Yeah.
So we got these. We got design, facade,
Mm-hmm.
interiors.
I wanted to just address the financial feasibility criteria, and one way that we could operationalize it is to include in the application that they lay out what their financial plan is, including it could be applying for grants that are on a different cycle, and we can always make it a condition of actually the reimbursement of the funding and just know about that going into the cycle.
I think that's key, though, is that it's a reimbursement. So the money's got to be spent up front. So whether they're getting it through a private loan or through a credit card or through a grant, the city's risk is already mitigated because it's a reimbursement. So if the project doesn't happen, the city's not out that much. So I don't know we need to put another layer of feasibility for something that's kind of risk mitigated at the back. That's just my.
Okay, because we have one more work session. So let's try to wrap up some of these bullet points. Let's just go. First, so establishing a project minimum. So I heard Councilor Gustafson throw out $10,000. Does anyone have a different opinion about that? Go ahead, Councilor Faulkner.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I guess I'm going to say I don't think that anything less than 20,000 is going to rise to the 60-point minimum. And so that's one thing I'm sort of like kind of back the napkin doing some like an application myself. So I think 20,000 is probably the minimum. And especially if, I mean, now with it being required that it be a building improvement.
Okay, so I saw head nods on 20,000 from like 5 of us, 6 of us. There's 6. Okay, so we're gonna go with 20,000 for the minimum cost threshold, and then restrict funding. Are we in agreement with that? Thumbs up. So it can't be used on portable, and then require it to be used for building improvement. Yes, and then what do we think about this financial feasibility through a letter of credit or? And a yes. Okay.
Here's the next step. So we'll update the website. We'll bring a resolution forward to the URA board for approval. Then we'll update the website. Grant application will open in July 1st and run to December 31st, 2026. The EDC will review the applications in January of 27, and then we'll bring those applications to the URA board in February for consideration.
Councilor Gustafson.
Sorry, when we're done with this slide, can we just go back? I have a question.
Okay, but we're back.
Oh, okay. So the last bullet must demonstrate financial feasibility through letter of credit or other written confirmation that matching investment has been secured. So Councilor Schimmel was talking about other grants as well. And is this going to be one of those situations where they've applied for another grant? They won't be able to do this unless they receive that other grant. And so it is conditional on them receiving that grant. And we've got somebody else, next person in the hopper behind that, person if it doesn't bring us up to that top dollar amount, so we can bubble somebody up if they aren't able to do the project.
I don't understand. Does
that make sense?
I think she's saying create a waiting list. So if somebody is relying on this grant and another funding source and that doesn't materialize, that the money doesn't just sit there for the 6 months, that we have somebody else, I guess, that would be waiting in line for that funding.
How have we done it in the past?
We've had enough funding for all the projects, so there hasn't been a need to have somebody in line. And it's reimbursement, so if the project doesn't happen, the city doesn't spend the money.
Yeah, I would just, we can discuss, I don't know if we want to discuss this right now, but the way I look at it, Councilor Gustafson, is that if whatever, like the project didn't pencil out, then that money would be added to the next year's.
It goes back into the URA
Yeah, it
fund.
goes back into the URA fund. That would be
No, and that's fine. That's fine. Mostly it was about allowing that contingency, because there's people that work, all the time. They work this grant along with this grant, and so they're trying to balance 2 grants to achieve one goal. And if we don't let them do it this way, where it's contingent on this other grant, then they can keep going in a circle because they don't have that full amount that they're really needing. So being able to allow that in our process would be very valuable to the businesses and building up.
I think in that other written confirmation that could be explained that they're looking at this other grant as their match.
Go ahead, Councilor Schimmel, and then Councilor Faulkner, but really like 5 minutes.
Well, can I I don't know if it's appropriate to propose a subcommittee, say, I would offer Councilor Gustafson and myself to like come back to staff with what that complexity looks like. And because I think that the way you've crafted this in isolation separate from outside funds is operable. But I think both Councilor Falcon or Gustafson and I have some affinity to this outside sources, catalyzing that with local sources. So I guess that's in a sense putting a pin in that for now and moving forward with this as it is, and then coming back with how do we get outside investment more productive to our business owners or property owners.
And I think what I've been hearing, maybe, and let me make sure my understanding is correct, is this idea of, does it make sense to ask for financial feasibility when we know businesses are trying to stack grants and their cycles don't necessarily line up? And I think with staff in the resolution and in the application, that we can address that in a way that makes sense, if I'm understanding what that concern is correctly.
Yeah. I think so too.
And I think we can come back with a resolution.
Councilor Guston.
Just to note that as a business owner and as somebody that looks through grants often, I pass the ones by that say, you must have this. I'm going to pass it by. So if there's something else in there saying, but if you've got this other grant going, they're going to miss that. They're going to go straight through their eligibility requirements, see that, and move on.
Yes, thank you for that feedback, Counselor. Well appreciated, and we will address that in the final document.
Okay, are there questions about the next steps? So, the thing too is this will be brought back on the February 13th meeting. So there's also time if something pops up. But again, I think there's good work being done. And with any project, you just try to improve each time, right? So we can continue to make adjustments as needed. And I appreciate the work that was done.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to adjourn this work session, and then we're going to immediately start our next.
Okay. You ready, Mayor?
12 minutes, yeah. Yep. Okay, so no public comment will be taken. The council will take no formal action, and the topic is police facility.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We have a 2-minute presentation. Next slide, please. Tonight, the purpose is to reach consensus on whether to place a $29.5 million bond to construct a new police facility on the November 2026 ballot. Next slide. We already know this part. Next slide, please. A lot of background associated with it. The only one I would recap tonight is that we did apply for a $3 million state grant in February 26. Unfortunately, we were not successful in obtaining that grant. So the bond amount was reflected at 29.5, which is what it was originally. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over to the chief.
I thought we were going to keep on going. But anyways,
Okay. Well,
I think we're going to jump to a lot of this.
next slide.
Jump to slide 8. Is considerations for the operating levy. As a recap, the city levy expires in 2028. Normally, ballot 3 elections, we ballot, we want to ballot the city levy at least 3 elections prior to its expiration, which would place it on the May 27th, 2027 ballot. Next slide. And here's what the timelines look at if we go for a November 26th ballot. So as Jesse mentioned, the polling took place in January this year. We would have to provide council a resolution approving ballot title, question and summary by July 13th. The last day for the ballot title is August 14th. Our notice of measure and explanatory statement is due on September 3rd. Last day to file arguments is on the 7th, and the ballots are mailed out on the 14th, and the election is on the 3rd. Again, if we want 27, the timelines there, we'd have to have the ballot and title in question and summary by the 25th. The ballot title due is on the 26th of February. The notice of measure and explanatory statement would be March 18th. Final day for arguments is the 22nd, and ballots, as stated, is April 28th, and the election would be on May 18th. Next slide. So, Jesse, do you want to take this one? You want me to keep going, or? Okay, no.
So this is a big election coming up in November 26. I'm not going to go through all of those, but it is 6 months from the operating levy. It will be 1.5 years since the police facility ballot. November of 2026 was initially looked at by the council. It allows a little bit more time for a communications plan over the summer. It would not require costing the police facility. Go to the next slide. The May 2027 ballot, it's what's called a small ballot. We are planning at this point, at least for the city operating levy, to be on there. One thing that was strongly recommended from the pollster was not to have two local revenue measures on the same ballot. So the operating levy and the police levy on the same ballot. Strongly recommended not to do that. Next slide, please. This is generally a communications plan. So if you can look through March and then go all the way through September, November, there is a period where there can be some advocacy. Once the ballot title gets approved, then it turns into education, except for a political action committee that could get formed. Staff cannot participate on that political action committee during work hours, obviously. And then the mailer, open house, public safety open house outreach would occur not only through the summer, but specifically in September through November. Next slide. Questions and discussion?
Okay, any
Thank you, Mayor.
questions? Go ahead, Councilor Felkner.
Jesse, I really appreciated that one of the last points you just made, which is that, once it's approved once the ballot's approved, city staff can't advocate for it during work hours.
Right.
I would just strongly, if we are going to do that, if we're going to do this, I think it's really important that, everyone participate in making sure that this thing passes. I know city council was actively involved last time. We filed a voter pamphlet statement. I would encourage any staff who are really interested in this thing passing, that they be active on their off-duty hours and making sure that it is successful.
Go ahead.
Yes, and follow up. Did you get any answer from the attorney on how boards and commission members are classified?
I haven't yet. I think we've always generally treated board and commission members as volunteers. But I do appreciate the clarification, Councilor Falconer, that staff can work on this off hours. They just can't do it during any kind of work time or use any kind of city resources whatsoever associated with it.
But the police union members, they can absolutely do it on their own time.
Yes, of course. Yep.
Any other questions for staff? So at the last work session, we had a robust discussion about general feelings and about creating a PAC. So then I asked counselors to reach out to your networks, your people, and, do you have anyone interested in being on the PAC or supporting this? Because the PAC is really going to be the group that fundraises, that drives education to help get this done. And so I'm just wanting some feedback of how you all did. If you found, I have two people that have committed to helping on the PAC. Anyone else?
The short answer is yeah. I think there's absolutely persons out.
Is there okay? Anyone else? Not really. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Do we want to ask for a bond for the police facility? Yes. Councilor Gustin? Yes. Okay, so then when do we want to go? I hear November. Okay. Yeah, I see consensus for November right now too. Okay, so we're going to go for November. Sweet. That's great news. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that all you needed from us?
Yep, that was it.
Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, we're going to reconvene at 7:05. You're welcome. Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Forest Grove City Council at 7:04. Will our city recorder please call roll?
Councillor Gustafson.
Here.
Council President Valenzuela.
Here.
Councillor Schimmel.
Here.
Councillor Falconer.
Here.
Councillor Martinez.
Here.
Councillor Marshall.
Here.
Mayor Wenzel.
Here. We acknowledge the land on which Forest Grove is located rests on the traditional village sites of the Atpalati, a tribe of the Kalapuas who originally inhabited the Tualatin Plains, including Forest Grove. They are now part of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde. Will the council and the audience please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Testing. That's better. Our proclamation this evening is for National Community Development Week. Whereas the week of April 6th through April 10th, 2026 has been designated as National Community Development Week by the National Community Development Association to celebrate the Community Development Block Grants, CDBG program, and the Home Investment Partnerships, HOME program. And whereas the CDBG program provides annual funding and flexibility to local communities to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing, a suitable living environment, and economic opportunities to low and moderate income people. And whereas the Home Investment Partnership programs provide funding to local communities to create decent, safe, affordable housing opportunities for low-income persons. Nationally, over 1 million units of affordable housing have been completed using home funds. Whereas Washington County has received a total of $10,353,189 in CDBG funds and $8,217,092 in home funds over the past 5 years. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Forest Grove does hereby proclaim April 6th through April 10th, 2026 as National Community Development Week. In Forest Grove, Oregon, in support of these two valuable programs that have made tremendous contributions to the viability of the housing stock, infrastructure, public services, and economic vitality in our community. Thank you.
A ver. Proclamación. Considerando que la semana del 6 al 10 de abril de 2026 ha sido designada como la Semana Nacional del Desarrollo Comunitario por la National Community Development Association, con el fin de celebrar el Programa de Subvenciones en Bloque para el Desarrollo Comunitario, CDBG, y el Programa de Asociaciones de Inversión HOME, y considerando que el programa CDBG proporciona financiamiento anual y flexibilidad a las comunidades locales para ofrecer viviendas dignas, seguras y salubres, un entorno adecuado para vivir y oportunidades económicas para personas de ingresos bajos y moderados. Y considerando que el programa de asociaciones de inversión HOME proporciona financiamiento a las comunidades locales para crear oportunidades de vivienda digna, segura y asequible para personas de bajos ingresos. A nivel nacional, más de 1 millón de unidades de vivienda asequible han sido completadas utilizando fondos HOME. Y considerando que el Condado de Washington ha recibido un total de $10,353,189 en fondos de CDBG y $8,217,092 en fondo de HOME durante los últimos 5 años. Ahora, por lo tanto, el Ayuntamiento de la ciudad de Forest Grove proclama por medio de la presente los días del 6 a 10 de abril de 2026 como Semana Nacional del Desarrollo Comunitario. en Forest Grove, Oregon, en apoyo a estos dos valiosos programas que han realizado contribuciones extraordinarias a la viabilidad de existencias de viviendas, la infraestructura, los servicios públicos y la vitalidad económica de nuestra comunidad, en testimonio de lo cual ha suscrito la presente y ha hecho que el sello de la ciudad de Forest Grove, Oregon, se emplace en este día 9 de marzo de 2026, nuestra alcaldesa Melinda Wenzel.
Thank you, Council President. We're going to move on to item B on the agenda, public comment. Time provided for anyone wishing to speak to City Council on an item not on the agenda or on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 2 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. The public comment period shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of councilors present vote to extend the time. Zoom attendees may use the raise hand option to be called on. Okay, our first public comment is Mr. David Dion. I got it. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. We've been lucky. Oregon has seen violence from ICE since the Trump administration began using the agency as a masked paramilitary, but we have not seen deaths at the hands of ICE in our streets. The spectacle of openly conducted extrajudicial execution has passed us by. But I do not expect this miracle to hold. ICE has killed American citizens, immediately moved to shield the offending agents from all consequences, and offered only token discipline to leadership with the removal of Kristi Noem to a diplomatic position. There has been no reform. These are not the actions of an agency intending to curb violence. Eventually, ICE will kill someone in the streets. Meanwhile, there has been a shocking pattern emerging in federal detention facilities. 10 deaths have been reported in ICE custody this year alone. Barely more than a week ago, Emmanuel Clifford DeMoss, a 56-year-old man, died of a tooth infection after being denied treatment. At the same time as these deaths occur, ICE has sought to obscure conditions in their facilities from government officials and the press. They're willing to report the death of a man in incredible pain from medical neglect. What are they hiding? Where are the missing detainees from the horrifying facility constructed in Florida and abandoned on the grounds of its terrible legal precedent? What are they planning to do with warehouses? We cannot allow ICE to operate without supervision. We cannot allow ICE to operate without oversight. We cannot allow ICE to operate in secrecy. ICE may eventually ask to use properties in Forest Grove or its surroundings as detention facilities. I promise you this, if that occurs in 10, 20, 15, 30 years, who knows how long, we will discover the sorts of stories from those places that make us all ashamed to have lived within 100 miles of them. We cannot allow that to occur. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale Feek. Good evening, Mr. Feek.
Good evening, Mayor Wenzel, Council President Venezuela, and Councilors Dale Feek. May I have 3 minutes, Presiding Officer?
Sure.
Thank you. Sunday, March 8th, the Forest Grove Indivisible held an event at the corner of 47th and McMinimans. People dressed in black held black signs who stood about 15 feet apart. The signs stated Trump's and his regime many ways of acting like fascists. The event will happen again on March 20th in front of the library. The National Individual No Kings Rally will be March 28th. Please, all of you who believe we need to do something to fight this, please participate in those events. I sent you an email, and I sent that to you, Mayor Wenzel, and councilors, and also mayors of Hillsborough, Beaverton, and Mayor Daley of Cornelius. And attached to that were Trump's Real Reason for War by Robert Reich, and also a document called U.S. and Israel Launched Attack on Iran by Heather Cox Richardson. The chair of the county commission many times says, ready, fire, aim. It should be ready, aim, fire. Trump did the first. Ready, fire, aim. We are in a big mess with the war in Iran. I support you, Mayor Wenzel, to protect its residents from ICE, Border Patrol, and Trump's war while Iran while providing critical public services, and all you council. After attending the State of the City by the Mayor of Beaverton, and after attending the Forest Grove City Council sessions and business meeting chaired by you, Mayor Wenzel, I also look forward to Mayor Jeffrey Dalen's presentation of the Forest Grove Indivisible membership. He's going to present that. So, because of all that, and I'm asking that all of you mayors coordinate your efforts to fight for due process in all the areas of your influence. Mayor Beatty expressed many actions. I was able to sit right in front, just like I'm doing right now. She was right there. And I also had a chance to personally talk with her personally before she made her presentation. And after attending, though, anyway, I did that. Mayor Beatty expressed many actions, some obvious and not many of them not obvious, that she's doing actions she's taken behind the scenes. The city of Beaverton has taken to do so. I'm repeating myself, but bear with me. I'm a teacher. Keep pushing in your scheduled work session, Mayor Wenzel, to do everything possible to protect and provide services to all the residents in Forest Grove. In the email I sent you, Robert Wright says, we will honor those who stood up to this tyranny, and we will hold accountable for those who have enabled it, who have broken the law, trod on our Constitution, and made themselves rich. And he also says, please remain helpful. Don't give up. Don't give in the war fever. Stay strong. Be safe. Hug your loved ones, as I did to my 8-year-old granddaughter when I took her to her music lessons today. I'm sorry I went over.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peak. Is there anyone else in the audience who did not have an opportunity to sign up for public comment who would wish to give public comment? Seeing nobody, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to give public comment? Please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none, we are going to move on.
Sorry.
You took a little too much. It's okay, Mr. Peak. So moving on to item C on the agenda, consent agenda. Items considered routine adopted with a single motion without discussion. Councilors may remove items prior to the motion to adopt. Any removed items are discussed and acted upon following the approval of the remaining items.
I move that we. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
So if I
Councilor
may, I
Shin.
wanted to remove item 4 for separate comment.
Okay. I don't think, Mariah, I always forget. Do you need a second to have an item removed or no, right? Okay, thanks. Okay, so what's the wish for the remaining consent agenda items?
Move to approve.
Hang on, guys.
Oh, sorry, Councilor Gufson.
And yeah, no problem. My agenda just closed, so forgive me, but there's one in there I need to have removed for the tourism grants. I'm not sure what number it is.
Item C2, the Tourism Sponsorship Award.
Yes. Can you please pull that? I'll be recusing from that one.
Okay, so we're going to remove item C2 and item C4 from the consent agenda. So then, is there a motion to approve items C1 and C3?
Move to approve.
Okay.
A second.
Council President Valenzuela moved to approve and Councilor Martinez seconded. What's the wish of the council? Or wait, All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the items C1 and C3 are approved by the City Council in a vote of 7-0. Now Councilor Schimmel, do you want to discuss item C4?
Yeah, it involves resignations from a board and commission. I just want to highlight Steve Kotschei, who's served on the Economic Development Commission for over a decade, and is probably serving on the chamber board as well. His term is expiring and coincides with his retirement. So this is a positive personal benefit to him. He can enjoy the rest of his retirement days, but he's been an exceptional public servant to the Economic Development Commission. Just want to highlight that.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor. I agree. Thank you for highlighting that. So then now, do I need to pass this one separate? Yes. Yes. Okay, so all those in favor of approving item C4, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, item C4 was approved by the City Council in a 7-0 vote. Okay, Councilor Gustafson, item C2.
Yes, I move to pull that from the agenda, or from the full consent agenda, so you guys can vote on that separate. I will be recusing myself.
Okay, so Councilor Gustafson's recusing from item C2. Any other discussion on that? I don't. Okay, so all those in favor of approving item C2, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? So item C2 was approved by the City Council in a vote of 6-0 with Councilor Gustafson recusing herself. Okay, I made it through the consent agenda. That seemed pretty clunky for me. That's okay. I made it through it. Okay, we're going to move on to item D, additions or deletions. City Manager, do you have any additions or deletions?
No additions or deletions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Gustafson, is your hand still raised from the last thing?
No, it's up again.
Okay.
Sorry, it was up too soon. Sorry.
Okay, is there any additions or deletions proposed by councilors? Councilor Gustafson.
I wanted to, and I don't know if it needs to be added tonight, but have a conversation very soon about parking in the downtown center.
Okay, so setup. So do you want to, what are you asking for, like a work session or an update? Because I know the traffic board.
A work session, yeah.
A work session on downtown parking?
On downtown parking, yep.
Okay. Is there
I would be up for that, just for the fact that I know that downtown businesses feel like that's their biggest issue is parking.
Okay. And I think too, there's going to be a traffic control change in downtown. So is there some updates?
Wednesday.
There's also some other updates we could do with downtown parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what we would bring to the work session, if there's a consensus with council, is what the existing parking is, what the existing limits are, how many spaces there are, where the public lots are. We can bring all that information. If there's other research that the council would like us to do prior to that work session, which if you would reach out to me and please let me know, that would really be helpful.
Okay. Is there consensus to have a work session on parking? I'm seeing heads nod. So I think there is consensus. So we will add that to an upcoming agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other additions or deletions from councilors? Okay, seeing none, we are going to move now on to item E, which is presentations. The council will hold questions until the end of each presentation. And so we have a presentation from our community development director and team about the comprehensive plan. And this is going to be a longer presentation than normal. Normally they're around 15, so it's half an hour.
Indeed it is going to be a longer presentation than normal. Thank you all. Brian Pohl, Community Development Director, City of Forest Grove, here with our amazing, wonderful senior planner in charge of long-range planning, Dan Reardon, talking to you about something that's we've been a long time in process to come to, and sort of I think we always kind of knew that on the heels of 2040 that we would be here talking about this very issue. So I'm going to let Dan do most of the presentation. I might jump in where necessary, but feel free to ask questions as we go along if you have any. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Mayor Wenzel and members of the City Council, Dan Urden, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. And it's my pleasure to be here with you this evening. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart as a planner. Can't get enough of the comprehensive plan, and so hopefully this will be a good presentation for everyone on the council to dive into what exactly is the comprehensive plan. So there are three things that we'd really like to touch on this evening, provide a little overview of what the purpose of the presentation is, what exactly is a comprehensive plan, and then potential next steps. So one purpose for this presentation is to specifically address Forest Grove Forward Vision 2040 Action Item 2.8, which is to specifically update the comprehensive plan. The second purpose for this presentation is to increase awareness of what a comprehensive plan is. Next slide, please. So there are some other actions that have been identified by the City Council over various discussions through the Forest Grove Forward planning process as well as through goal setting that could potentially be considered as part of the comprehensive plan. And those include a climate action plan, Vision Zero related to traffic, an urban forest program, establishing 15-minute neighborhoods, and a bird-safe dark sky program. Next slide, please. So before I move forward into exactly what is a comprehensive plan, I'd like to provide an overview of how the comprehensive plan fits in with other policy documents and laws. The comprehensive plan is called out on this graphic that's up on the screen by the arrow. The comprehensive plan authority stems from constitutional and federal requirements, mostly the Constitution, state law, Oregon Revised Chapter 197, and the Oregon Administrative Rules, which implement the statewide planning goals, and then metro requirements. The city's comprehensive plan has to be consistent with the Metro Region 2040 planning concept, the Urban Growth Management Functional Plan, and the Regional Transportation Plan. And then out of the comprehensive plan flow the development codes and the zoning map. The development code implements what's the policies that are in the comprehensive plan. The development codes are used to assess land use applications, leading to development approval, and then ultimately building permits. And then hopefully at the end of the day, once we go through the process with our community members, we have happy, satisfied residents. That's always the desired outcome. So what is a comprehensive plan? It's defined in state law, and the statement up on the definition in the state law is somewhat bureaucratic, and so it's somewhat paraphrased, but essentially a comprehensive plan is a generalized, coordinated land use map, which is shown up on the screen, and a policy statement, which is the text in the comprehensive plan that interrelates the systems and activities related to the use of land. And we'll get into specifically what those systems and activities are, but it's basically to ensure that coordination is occurring. So a comprehensive plan also provides a factual basis, and this is very important, a factual basis for making local land use decisions so that they are not arbitrary. The policies in the comprehensive plan are intended to provide certainty for community residents as well as the development community, so they know what the community's expectations are around land use. The comprehensive plan also provides the foundations for the standards regulating development in the city's development code. The comprehensive plan is a policy document and is not regulatory. That is another important point related to the comprehensive plan. When a development application comes in the door, we don't review the development application based on what's in the comprehensive plan. We review it based on what's on the zoning map and what's in the development code. So the comprehensive plan is implemented by the city zoning map, which is a separate document, and the development code, both of which are regulatory. The comprehensive plan is intended to be dynamic and responsive to community needs. Since the comprehensive plan was adopted in 2014, it's been amended 17 times by ordinance. Many of these are map amendments brought forward by the request of a property owner or a developer. Some of them are related to text amendments to the code or amending the comprehensive plan to update it based on other planning documents that are adopted. And I'll get into that in a little bit more detail later in the presentation. But foremost and fundamentally, a comprehensive plan demonstrates the city's compliance with the Oregon statewide planning goals. There are 19 planning goals that have been adopted by the Oregon legislature, And the goals are the foundation of the statewide planning program. They really express the state's expectations for planning related to land use. Next slide. So out of the 19 Oregon statewide land use planning goals, 12 are specifically applicable to the city of Forest Grove, and those are shown in bold. And the comprehensive plan is structured in a way so that it can clearly demonstrate compliance with these goals. Comprehensive plans can be structured in different ways, like topics can be combined, but the way our comprehensive plan is set up is it's intended to address each one of these goals specifically. Next slide. So the Forest Grove Comprehensive Plan includes specific chapters that address each one of those applicable planning goals, except for statewide planning goals 6 and 13, which are embedded throughout the plan because they touch a number of different topic areas. We'll get into it in a little bit more detail later in the presentation. So this is the structure of the city's comprehensive plan, and this table shows each one of the individual chapters, the topic that's addressed, and the statewide planning goal that's addressed. Go through each chapter one by one. Next slide. Chapter 1 has background information. It's very general. It's really intended to lay the foundation for the comprehensive plan. Chapter 1 identifies the significant changes that occurred since the original plan was adopted in 1980. Chapter 1 also addresses the plan context and the planning authority that stems from state law, Oregon Revised Statutes, Chapter 197. It also gets into what the sideboards are for local planning. Chapter 1 also identifies the issues and opportunities addressed in the comprehensive plan. One is community sustainability, which I'll hit on in just a moment. And then Chapter 1 also identifies the relationship of the local comprehensive plan with the Metro Region 2040 growth concept, because it has to be consistent. Moving on to Chapter 2. Chapter 2 addresses the city's community involvement process, which is related to statewide planning goal 1, the foundation for the Oregon's planning program, citizen involvement. Chapter 2 specifically recognizes the city's boards and commissions as a way to encourage community involvement. And Chapter 2 also identifies what is now the Committee for Community Engagement as the primary way of fulfilling Goal 1 requirements. Goal 1 requires that the city has a committee related to community involvement. Chapter 3 addresses community sustainability. And you'll notice going back to the statewide land use planning goals, there isn't a goal specifically related yet to community sustainability, but community sustainability touches on a number of different goals. Chapter 3 includes a greenhouse gas inventory for municipal operations that was done about the same time that the comprehensive plan was being developed, includes a vision for local sustainability, and includes goals and policies around sustainability. And some examples include encouraging interconnected land uses, creating complete neighborhoods where there are a variety of services and activities occurring. And that was really the foundation for the city's neighborhood mixed use zone being created. And then adopting development standards for climate mitigation. And the goal Chapter 3 also includes a goal or policy for preparing a climate action plan. Not specifically, but this is something that the city council would like to, one of those topics that the city council would like to include. A community climate action plan could be included as part of Chapter 3, so that could be called out further in more detail. So although there is a sustainability vision and actions around sustainability, if there's a specific community climate action plan that the council would like to proceed with, that could be called out further in Chapter 3. Next slide, please. Chapter 4 addresses statewide planning goal number 2, which is related to land use. This is a really important goal. It's really the one that is the most overarching in the comprehensive plan. It describes in Chapter 4 the city's land use districts, which are shown on the comprehensive plan map, showing up on the screen. And one thing that's really important to know is that to comply with Oregon's statewide land use planning goal 2, the comprehensive plan must designate enough land for development needs for all activities, commercial, retail, industrial, for a 20-year time. So that relates to the factual basis and making sure that we have enough land to meet fairly long-term needs, a 20-year time frame for planning. Next slide, please. The comprehensive plan is implemented, as I mentioned earlier, by the city's zoning map, which is regulatory. The comprehensive plan and zoning map should be consistent, if at all possible. And one thing to know is that the zoning map can be adopted concurrently with the comprehensive plan at the same time or separately, since it is a separate document. So it could be adopted separately, similar to the city's development code, which is also a separate document. Next slide. Chapter 4 includes guiding principles for the efficient use of land and complementary land uses. And additional detail can be added to Chapter 4 for specifically creating 15-minute neighborhoods, if that's something that the City Council would like to see. Chapter 4 provides a framework for the standards contained in the city's development code regulating land use. The development code currently includes standards for lighting. A policy could be added to the comprehensive plan, and the development code could be amended to include lighting standards for a bird-safe dark sky policy. So that could be added to Chapter 4 of the comprehensive plan if desired. Chapter 5 starts to get into the factual basis of the comprehensive plan. Chapter 5 addresses the housing needs and requirements of statewide planning goal 10. Goal 10 requires that the city adopt a housing needs, which is now needs/capacity analysis. So it was a housing needs analysis. It is now being referred to as a housing capacity analysis. The housing capacity analysis is part of the comprehensive plan and provides a basis for amending the comprehensive plan map and zoning map. And an example of this is if the housing capacity analysis shows that the city has a deficiency in land needed to meet residential development projections over the next 20 years, if there's a deficiency, the zoning map and comprehensive plan map can be amended to redesignate non-residential land. So say industrial land. One example might be a portion of the Oak Street industrial area. That potentially could be redesignated to residential on the comprehensive plan map and zoning map to make sure so that we can assure that the city's long-term housing needs are met. 20-year plan. Next slide, please. Chapter 6 relates specifically to the local economy and statewide planning goal 9. Goal 9 requires that the city prepare an economic opportunity analysis that assesses land available for industrial and commercial needs. And it basically reconciles demand for commercial and industrial land with the supply that's available. And again, this gets to ensuring that there's an adequate supply of land designated on the comprehensive plan map and zoning map for non-residential purposes, commercial, industrial, and institutional as well. The EOA is part of the comprehensive plan map, and that's why we bring it forward to the council for adoption by ordinance. It actually amends the comprehensive plan so that the EOA is included as part of the comprehensive plan. And the EOA also provides a basis for changes to the comprehensive plan map and zoning. Moving on to Chapter 7. Chapter 7 addresses public facilities and services, which are broadly defined. It relates specifically to statewide planning goal 11. Goal 11 requires that cities plan and develop a timely, orderly, and efficient arrangement of public facilities and services to serve as a framework for development. This is really just a long way of saying that there needs to be adequate infrastructure provided to support the land use concept on the city's comprehensive plan, so that the sanitary sewer, storm drainage, and water lines are sufficient and can serve those land uses that are on the map. But Goal 11 goes beyond just water, sewer, and storm drainage. It also includes recreation facilities, communications, educational services, schools, and community governmental services. Now, the facility master plans that the city's engineering division works on are considered to be part of the comprehensive plan, specifically the water master plan, the wastewater master plan, and the storm drainage plan. Again, this is why we bring these forward to the City Council for adoption by ordinance, because it actually amends the comprehensive plan when the new plans are being adopted. Chapter 7 also includes the Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces Master Plan, because Goal 8 and Goal 11 both require that the city address recreational facilities. And so to comply with the goal requirements, the city's Parks and Recreation Master Plan are adopted as part of the comprehensive. Next slide. So moving on to, or also included in Chapter 8 as part of a Goal 11 requirement is coordination with the local school district. Although the school district's long-range facility master plan is not part of the comprehensive plan officially, there is a requirement under state law that school district needs be coordinated with the comprehensive plan. And so when we went through the comprehensive plan update the last time in 2014, we found that there was a need for an additional elementary school in the community based on the school district's projections for enrollment. And so a site was identified on the comprehensive plan map for a future elementary school, which is north of the Farmstead development, north of David Hill Road. And so that going through this process ensured that the school district needs are actually captured in the comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. Moving on to Chapter 9. Chapter 9 addresses the requirements of Goal 5, which addresses natural resources and other items, which I'll discuss in a moment, but it's mostly related to natural resources. Chapter 9 of the comprehensive plan includes goals and policies related to natural resources. And this would be a good place for the City Council to add goals and policies related to the urban forest, if that's something the City Council would like to proceed with. Would fit in nicely with Chapter. Goal 5 also requires that the city inventory local historic resources. So Goal 5 addresses natural resources and other resources, such as the historic resources of the community. So the city's historic districts are identified specifically in the comprehensive plan, as well as all of the locally designated historic structures in the community. Goal 5 also requires that there be local adoption of programs that will protect and preserve historic resources, and this could be something like the city's historic preservation plan, which is being developed. Chapter 10 addresses urbanization. This basically addresses areas that are inside the urban growth boundary but are not yet in the city, or cities that are actively under development. Chapter 10 addresses Goal 14 and touches on annexation, what the requirements for annexation are, and how annexation proceeds in the community. Land use planning coordination is also another key component. So coordination with Metro, the State Department of Land Conservation Development, and also Washington County. And there is an urban planning area agreement between Washington County and the city that identifies roles and responsibilities for planning within the city's planning area, basically the area inside the UGB, both inside the city limits and the unincorporated area. And the reason I mention this is there has been an amendment to the urban planning area agreement that the Washington County Board of Commissioners has adopted, and we'll be bringing that forward to the City Council for review and consideration in the not too distant future. And then Chapter 10 also touches on concept planning for the urban reserve area up on David Hill and areas brought into the urban growth boundaries, such as the West Side Plan area. Slide. And then Chapter 11, getting towards the end here, Chapter 11 addresses transportation needs and statewide planning Goal 12 requirements, which relates to a safe and convenient transportation system. One thing to know is that transportation is defined very broadly under Goal 12. It includes not only roads and bicycle lanes and sidewalks for pedestrian and transit, it also includes rail and pipelines. And so it's comprehensive, as you might imagine. Goal 12 requires the adoption of a local transportation system plan. The TSP is part of the comprehensive plan. And Chapter 12 and the Transportation System Plan is a place where something like a policy for Vision Zero could be addressed. Next slide, please. So wrapping things up in terms of next steps, tonight's presentation provided an introduction of what a comprehensive plan is and what it contains. Hopefully it was somewhat interesting and educational. It's the first in a series of presentations and work sessions related to updating, scoping, and sequencing the comprehensive plan. Future presentations and work sessions will delve into follow-up from any questions from tonight's presentation if needed, the process for updating the comprehensive plan under state law, and project scoping for the comprehensive plan, what to include, what not to include, including how to possibly in more detail incorporate actions from Vision 2040 into the comprehensive plan. This concludes my portion of the presentation. Brian, is there anything you'd like to?
I'll just add, I think Dan summed it up that, this is what we're trying to kind of show you tonight, educational sort of session. Of course, there's a lot in the comprehensive plan. I won't go there again with the comprehensive. But the comp plan is available on our website if any of you want to just kind of read it, skim it, kind of if you have any questions about it, feel free to contact us. I think that what will be interesting for you is if you've been on the city council for a while, you may have seen things come in front of you and have all these ordinances, citations, and everything. The interesting thing about the comprehensive plan is you'll see sort of the genesis of where those things came from, and that might be a little bit illuminating for you. But if you have any questions or you want a copy or want us to print out a copy, whatever, just ask us. We can help you out.
Okay, thanks. Questions, Councillor Schimmel?
Yeah, generally, I'm curious about timeline relative to intersecting statutes or state statutes, like namely the housing production plan, and whether that chapter takes emergency because you got to hit a deadline as you build out the entirety of the plan. Is there do you have a general sense or as maybe come back with the slide on what that timeline and intersections look like?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we have more sort of discovery to do. That's certainly one thing that kind of traveling alongside this comp plan update. We also have a TSP update that last I heard was due by end of 2027. So that's also part of the comprehensive plan that kind of gets adopted beside it. And so this doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? I mean, we don't just do our own comprehensive plan and have no oversight to it. The State Department of Land Conservation and Development also either is involved in the plan. We'll talk more about this next session, but either is involved in the plan with us or kind of gets the sort of oversight at the end when we're done and ready to adopt this thing through a post-acknowledgement plan amendment. And so working alongside DLCD will also kind of help us sort of sequence these things correctly. Point blank, we don't know exactly how these things fit together yet, but we're exploring. Maybe Dan wants to comment on that.
Just to maybe elaborate a little bit, a comprehensive plan, depending on the scope, can take a number of years. I know Councilor Falconer, Milwaukee updated their comprehensive plan not that long ago, and it was a 3-year process. And we have a very strict timeline for adoption of the city's housing capacity analysis, and out of that comes housing production strategies, and then the transportation system plan timeline. And so I think something we'd like to delve in further with the council is one of the subsequent presentations or work sessions is how exactly all of these pieces do fit.
Yeah, one of the things I'm interested in learning or getting staff recommendation about is really how we march this forward, in what capacity, how do you ramp us up and get the education we need? Do we want a subcommittee? Like, how much are we going to let the consultant? I think I'm just going to really lean hard on staff to tell us, right, like the best way, because this is, arguably one of the most important documents the city has. And so it's really important that we do it well and do it right. And I just, and I'm not the expert. So I think just moving forward as we do the education and then, look at the scope and figure out if it's a subcommittee, I think that's going to be the guidance that I'm going to be looking for from staff.
And Mayor, that really gets to the process. There are basically 2 avenues, 2 pathways that are available to the city. And I think how that's structured, any committees, how involvement occurs, it's really dependent on which pathway the city council would like to move forward with. And again, that's something we'd like to delve into further with the council at an upcoming work session likely.
Okay, cool. Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Just a comment. I'm super excited to work with you on this. I think like you said, it is one of the most, it's the foundation, and everything else, sort of they speak to each other, but it's like a vision, and it can be really boring work if you let it be, but it can also be really fun and rewarding, and I'm really excited to do it in my new community.
Oh, great.
We are too.
I smell volunteerism here. So
Yes, you do.
Like we can lean hard on that. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we're now going to move on to item F, which is public hearings, ordinances, and resolutions. And I'm going to, I think I have to open this up, right? Yeah. I'm going to open the public hearing. The council will now consider the second reading of ordinance 2026-02, amending Forest Grove's Development Code, Article 8, Development Standards, and Article 12, use categories and definitions, file number 311-25-0000025-PLNG. Do any councilors have a conflict of interest to declare? Not seeing any. Are there any additional comments or evidence that staff would like to enter into the record?
No, Mayor Wenzel, thank you very much.
Okay, does the council have any questions for staff? Seeing none. What is the will of the council?
Move that we pass ordinance 2026-02.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Ordinance 2026-02 was moved by Councilor Martinez and seconded by Council President Valenzuela. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, will the city manager please read the ordinance by title only?
Ordinance 2026-02, amending Forest Grove Development Code Article 8, Development Standards, and Article 12, Use Categories and Definitions, file number 31125-000025 PLNG.
Great, thank you. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Counselor Marshall?
Yes.
Counselor Gustafson?
Yes.
Council President Valenzuela?
Yes.
Counselor Schimmel?
Yes.
Counselor Falconer?
Yes.
Counselor Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yes. The vote is 7-0. Ordinance 2026-02 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
Okay, now we're moving on to Resolution 2026-06, and I'm going to have our Economic Development Coordinator, Miles Glowacki, present.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This resolution is to transfer appropriations from within various funds to the Economic Development Fund for an economic development strategic plan. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions? Nope, I don't see any. Okay. Any questions for staff? Nope. Okay, what is the wish of the council?
Move to approve Resolution 2026-06.
Second.
Okay, moved by Council President Valenzuela, seconded by Councilor Martinez. Okay, any discussion? No, seeing no discussion. Okay, will the city manager read it by title only, please?
Resolution 2026-06, transferring appropriations within various funds for fiscal year 2025-26 for an economic development strategic plan.
Okay, all those in favor of Resolution 2026-06, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, Resolution 2026-06 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a 7-0 vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Resolution 2026-07. I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Kim Ezel.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Resolution before you tonight is to adopt the 2026 to 2028 City Council Action Plan. Per the council rules, the City Council must adopt short and long-term goals and objectives every year, no later than March. Goals and objectives provide critical direction to staff regarding resource allocation for the budget and annual work plans. The process to establish the 26 to 28 City Council Action Plan included annual reports by department directors, a work session in December, and refinement work sessions last December and this February. Based on these sessions, City Council identified 26 actions from Vision 2040 and past priorities to form the plan. Council also noted 5 items to consider in the upcoming comprehensive plan update scoping discussions, and additional 16 items to be held in an incubator and considered in future years. Should Council adopt the plan, staff will identify leads, resource needs, and timelines for each action. The plan will be posted on the website, and regular updates on progress will be scheduled for future Council presentations and shared with the community. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, what is the wish of the council?
Move to approve Resolution 2026-07.
Second.
Okay. Resolution 2026-07 was moved by Councilor Falconer and seconded by Council President Valenzuela. Any discussion? Nope, seeing none. Okay, will the city manager please read it by title only?
Resolution 2026-07, adopting 2026 through 2028 City Council Action Plan.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Resolution 2026-07, adopting the 26-28 City Council Action Plan is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a 7-0 vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, up next is Resolution 2026-08, and I'm going to turn that over to our city recorder.
Thank you, Council. This resolution follows some work sessions that were held, I believe, in 2025 to make some minor updates to the city manager's self-evaluation form. This is just part of the annual process that the council is required to do as part of the evaluation. And I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Seeing or hearing none. What is the wish of the council? Crickets.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Gustafson, seconded by Councilor Schimmel. Any discussion from council? Hearing none, will the city manager please read the resolution by title only? Sorry, do you want me to read it? Okay. Resolution 2026-08, adopting city manager performance evaluation and self-evaluation forms and repealing resolution number 2025-09. All those in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, resolution 2026-08 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council. Okay, turning the page, we're like rolling. Sorry, I gotta keep up with this. Okay, resolution 2026-09. I'm going to turn over to our city manager, Jesse Vander Zanden.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My staff report might be a little bit longer, so I apologize in advance. But resolution 2026-09 deals with the purchase of real property. It addresses our goal of community growth and specifically our action to expand green and climate resilient infrastructure and equipment, which is action 2.23. A little bit of background. As you well know, the Council Creek Regional Trail that goes from Hillsborough out to Forest Grove used to be a right-of-way owned by Portland and Western Railroad. That right-of-way was subsequently, they abandoned that right-of-way, so Oregon Department of Transportation became the owners. They subsequently declared that right-of-way surplus, and the main 60-foot swath of that right-of-way was sold to TriMet, and so they are now the owner essentially of the Council Creek Regional Trail. That's a 60-foot swath from Hillsborough all the way out to Forest Grove. As part of that process, they have what's called remnant parcels. These are parcels that are adjacent to the right-of-way that the Department of Transportation put up for sale. There were two parcels that the city was interested in. One was a 2.83 acre parcel directly south of the railroad spur that was between 23rd and Hawthorne. The other one was the actual spur itself that came off of the right-of-way between 23rd and Hawthorne. The city currently owns property to the north and to the south of that spur, and we currently have a stormwater treatment facility on the 2.83 acre parcel near Hawthorne and 23rd. And so this resolution would authorize a purchase and sale agreement for the city to purchase these properties and take possession of the properties. The 2.83 acre parcel appraised for $10,000 and the spur appraised for $17,400. We have entered into agreements with the Department of Transportation to purchase those properties. This resolution would allocate those monies to do so. And the fiscal impact would be $27,400 total. $10,000 would come from the Surface Water Management Fund. That's to purchase the 2.83 acre parcel, and the $17,400 would come from the street fund as the spur property is aligned with that purpose. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them. I do want to recognize Greg Robertson, our Public Works and Engineering Director. He is not feeling well, so he was not able to be here this evening. I'm stepping in for Greg, but Greg was the one who negotiated these properties and worked with ODOT and with TriMet as well. And so kudos to Greg on these on these properties. So be happy to entertain any questions.
Questions for staff? Jesse, I don't know if you mentioned this, but this allows us, like, these purchases give us credit with clean water service and some of, did he mention that? And I was, okay.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Mayor. The 2.83 acre parcel is especially good for stormwater drainage. And by purchasing, this does give the city what's called some developable credits, if you will. So if we look at developing properties, either on our Urban Renewal Agency properties or maybe even city property, whether it's a police facility or whether it's an urban renewal project, this can serve as credit for stormwater management. And so, good point. Thank you for reminding me.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? What is the wish of the council?
Move to approve Resolution 2026.
Second.
Thank you. Resolution 2026 was moved by Council President Valenzuela and seconded by Councilor Martinez. Any discussion?
Just how great Greg is. He's
Yeah, a little shout out to
so
Greg.
good. Yeah.
Pass it on.
Thank you, Councilor Martinez. Okay. Will the city manager please read it by this very long title, title only?
Resolution number 2026-09, resolution authorizing the city manager or designee to sign purchase agreement and complete the purchase of a railroad spur property located on the southwest corner of Hawthorne and 23rd. Tax lot number, no tax lot number and identification for the spur. And 2.83 acres of property located in the southeast quarter of Section 31, Township 1 North, Range 3 West, WM, Washington County Tax Lot 1N331, DC 06100.
Perfect. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, Resolution 2026-09 is approved with a 7-0 vote. Moving on to Resolution 2026-10, I will turn it back over to Jesse.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Resolution 2026-10 is regarding an intergovernmental agreement with Washington County for the administration of the Contamination Reduction Program. It does pertain to our community growth goal of environmentally sustainable and climate-conscious community for all. It also addresses Action 2.23, which is to expand green and climate-resilient infrastructure and equipment. A little bit of background on this. In 2021, the Oregon legislature passed what was called the Recycling Modernization Act to improve recycling in Oregon. Essentially, the RMA, or what they call the RMA, charges a per ton assessment to entities that produce packaging products that can be recycled. Those monies then get, eventually they go to either a local municipality or a solid waste producer, and those monies are then used to try and reduce, reuse, and recycle. The RMA collects $3 per capita to accomplish this objective, and essentially the monies are split 50-50. So 50% of the funds go to solid waste providers for Forest Grove, that is waste management. The other 50% go to local governments, and that's principally to do education and awareness associated with recycling modernization. The Department of Environmental Quality went through a rulemaking process, and then they went through what was called a competitive proposal process, and they selected the Circular Action Alliance, or CAA, to administer the Recycling Modernization Act program. That is a nonprofit. They are responsible for essentially collecting the funds and dispersing the funds in accordance with the program's goals and objectives. Some of those eligible expenses associated with the RMA program are transportation, contamination evaluation, contamination reduction programming, recycling service expansion identified in the needs assessment, the purchase of post-consumer recycled content collection containers, or more recycling containers. Those are some of the eligible expenses. So over the past about year and a half, city staff from Washington County, from what's called the Washington County Watershed Technical Committee, which includes the cities of Cornelius, Durham, Hillsborough, King City, North Plains, Sherwood, Tigard, Tualatin, Beaverton, and of course Forest Grove, have been meeting over the past approximately 18 months on how to best administer the Recycling Modernization Act. This structure, if you will, the Washington County Watershed Technical Committee, is really a framework that was established from an intergovernmental agreement that was done clear back in 2011 with all of the same cities. At that time, it was to administer what was called the annual waste reduction program. And it was a very similar framework that we're seeing now in this proposed IGA. So essentially, the framework was the same. A lot of the programming requirements were the same. The Recycling Modernization Act is a new program, a bolstered program. And now this is an intergovernmental agreement to implement that program, essentially using the same framework that is in existence and has been in existence for approximately 15 years under a previous intergovernmental agreement. The fiscal impact is that Forest Grove is eligible to receive approximately $80,000 per year under the RMA. However, 50% of that comes straight off the top and goes to waste management for recycling services. The other 50% goes to the city. Essentially, what this IGA would do is take the remaining funds and have the Circular Action Alliance give those to Washington County to basically implement the program. What that would include is establishing an annual work plan for contamination reduction, providing the work that requires technical expertise, including plan development, data collection, compilation, data compliance, report writing, etc., performing field work, including customer-facing contamination reduction education materials, technical assistance, public forums on how to reduce waste, and then coordinating with the garbage and recycling collection companies and with DEQ, filing the necessary reports to assure their state compliance. And then last, establishing program criteria and seeking reimbursement and applying for contamination reduction funds from CAA itself. I know that was a mouthful, so if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Or hearing none. I don't know. Is it seeing none or hearing none? But anyways, okay, what is the wish of the council?
Move to approve resolution 2026-10.
Second.
Okay, resolution 2026-10 was moved by Councilor Falconer and seconded by Councilor Marshall. Any discussion? No, I don't see or hear any. Okay. All those in favor? Oh wait, no. Can you please read it by title only? So
Resolution number 2026-10, resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Forest Grove and Washington County for administration of the contamination reduction program.
thank you. All those in favor of approving resolution 2026-10, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, resolution 2026-10 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council. We're rolling.
We are rolling.
Speedy. Okay, so we're going to now move on to council communications. I'll start with our council president.
Yes, and I'll keep on rolling because the PAB meeting was canceled for this month and the library meeting is not until Wednesday. So I'll have news for you the next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, council president.
I'm looking forward to our state of the city on Thursday.
Well, Councilor Falconer.
Nothing to report.
Councilor Gustafson.
Nothing.
Rolling. Councilor Marshall.
Sorry, Parks and Rec meeting is on Wednesday, so I'll have more to discuss then, but I did want to say that the Forest Grove High School wrestling team placed third in state
I know,
wrestling.
so cool. That's so cool. Like,
Placing.
really good job.
That's
Everyone, good
awesome.
job. That's like, so the team placed third. That's huge.
Yeah, never in the history of they placed.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't, it's really good. It's a good program. Good job.
Also, Mikey.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, Councilor Martinez.
So Sister City Committee, they're continuing to talk about what they need to do to become a 501c3. At some point, they'll want to have space on our agenda so that they can come forward with a resolution. But they will, and once they're ready, they'll let us know. And then on the Rural Fire District Board, they're getting ready to, they've agreed on a sign to put up at the Gaston Fire Station that they want to do. There's some other things that they're changing as far as their accounting, who's handling their books. And then information that I will be sharing at our State of the City is how well we're doing now with the additional 3 firefighters, because for February, we were able to staff 2 fire trucks 100% of the time, which helps our response times for the community. Plus, it also helps with the firefighters so that they're not constantly on the road. They get a little downtime to rest between, to eat, to care for themselves too. So, yeah, it's great. This how things are going now.
Great. Thank you, Councilor
Oh,
Martinez.
I'll
Go
let
ahead, no.
Brian talk about.
No, you
No?
go ahead.
Okay. So Friday night, Councilor Schimmel, Councilor Gustafson, and I attended the firefighters gala,
Oh, fun.
and it was really nice. It was really great to celebrate the firefighters and their accomplishments and see them get their awards, and the chaplains there also, how they support the firefighters. It was really a good time, just helping them celebrate their accomplishments. And great food. It was a wonderful atmosphere. It was a good time.
Awesome. I'm glad you guys were able to attend. Great. Okay, next up is Councilor Schimmel.
On Economic Development Commission, I want to maybe reiterate a subtle point in our earlier URA board work session. Their contribution is pretty considerable regarding the URA grant program and evaluation. So when Kim and Miles present to us, it's following robust interaction or contribution from them. So that's a great model for how our boards and commissions contribute to our objectives. And then likewise with CCE, that's another eager bunch ready to support our priorities in meaningful ways. So the police facility bond is one area that they hope they can contribute. And we're just waiting for some legal guidance on the scope and nature relative to staff, but they're eager there. They're also, it had initiated this Board Buddies program where if you haven't seen them in your respective board or commission, they're present to bring back to CCE what might be relevant for them to participate in. So that'll continue. The TV Highway Transit and Safety Project, specifically the Policy and Budget Committee that I liaison on, has resumed. It now has shifted from Metro to TriMet project management. This project's intended to improve travel times, reliability, accessibility, safety for transit riders. Just to jump to the service open target is fall of 2030, so we're still years away. There's a community advisory committee that advises the project. It's a separate community-oriented committee that there's a person actually from Forest Grove who sits on the committee itself with us. So having not only someone from that committee present, but someone from Forest Grove to meet, emphasize our interests is a pleasure. The one point that was quite a surprise to the committee this last time was the prospect of a 60-foot bus versus 40, and where the 40 was preferred by all and would better serve the community, particularly in terms of accessibility and various types of mobility devices and different types of bikes. The hang up is the Merlot substation that would service those buses cannot accommodate a 60-foot bus, or what they said it would cost another $250 million to upgrade the station. So it was sort of a deflating limitation that unless by a miracle $250 million shows up to upgrade the station, we're basically stuck with a 40-foot diesel bus. So that's the condition today. There's a lot of years ahead, and miraculous things could happen. But so that's the one one area, one important point that we're restricted to right now. Otherwise, the committee will be meeting every other month to just see the progress through.
Cool, thank you. City manager report, please.
Just a couple things really quick. The East Side Park project is out for bid, as well as the Parks and Recreation and Open Space Master Plan. That is also out for bid. The city staff budget instructions were delivered last week, and so city staff is busy looking at both the capital and the operating budgets vis-a-vis the budget committee meetings, which are coming up as a friendly reminder on May 12th, and if a second meeting is necessary on May 19th. So please mark your calendars for that. The only other thing I would mention is between the period of July 1st and December 31st, the Fund for All Fund from Parks and Recreation awarded $8,400 to those folks who needed assistance participating in some of our activities. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, that's great news. Thank you. Okay, so a few things on Region 1 Transportation. Each act was asked or tasked to identify their top CIP priorities. And so Region 1 recommended the I-5 Rose Corridor improvement, which is House Bill 2017, TV Highway Investment Bus Rapid Transit Project, Sunrise Corridor Phase 2, Expressway 205 to 192nd, the historic Columbia River Highway trail completion, and then arterial safety investment. So that was the 5 we sent. And then we had a second meeting, and we were able to say whether backup projects or in the queue projects. And that was a robust conversation that came out with like no action. So some of the things we could say are safety projects that are based on data, 217 project, Boone Bridge. These are some of the ones that I had pinged. I guess the ones that I would have added afterwards would have been like the safety projects and jurisdictional transfers and paving. But the act seems to think some people in the act don't want to put any other CIP projects on it. They just want to focus on the 5. But I don't know what the chair of that meeting just wanted to have a discussion and no action that day. So that's what we just talked about, those things. So Commissioner Treese and I are having some scheduling issues, but in the Washington County Chair plus Mayor meeting, there's a couple commissioners tasked to talking to mayors about the vehicle registration tax increase. And so I'm trying to work that out with Commissioner Treese's office. And then something that's fun is there's a pilot program for drones as part of emergency response team for Washington County. So like the drones might show up first or might show up with them, but they're doing a little pilot program with that. So that sounds fun and interesting. I don't really know too much more than that. Just a friendly reminder that the State of the City is this Thursday at 5:30. If you're speaking in person, I don't know if you've been shared the whole draft, but you'll come up on stage like right before or after your thing. I'm also going to announce the winners of the If I Were Mayor contest and some other things. It should be a really good time. And I just want to, I don't know if anyone watches this, but I just want to thank Stephanie and Joyce for their work on the State of the City. It's just a huge project and they've done a lot. And that's addition to all the other things on their work plan. We're taking a group of four MEAC students to DC, and we leave on Sunday and come back on like after the conference. One thing I do want to say is we talked about the budget meeting is I'm just going to own it. I feel like I'm really doing a disservice to that group because I don't have the capacity to reach out to other like cities and coordinators to think about volunteer opportunities and really like do that. Most other cities that have MEACs have staff that's helping them. And I know that we are it's funny because I like to call our staff small but mighty. And then I heard Jamie at the DC trip tell the parents, like, we work on a skeleton crew here. And I was like, the perspective. But that was good for me to hear because, like, I do feel that it probably feels like they're overworked and undervalued at times. And so I don't necessarily want staff to take on the MEAC, but we just have to figure out some way. I don't know if it's through an internship, but I'm really happy to see youth involvement. And it's been like a personal goal. And I think it's good for secession and good for the city. But I just don't think I just literally cannot like do the things I should be doing for that group in terms of connecting them with other youth organizations. So just bringing that up for budget or intern opportunities. So I'm putting it so you guys can simmer about that. And that's all I have. So with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Early. It's the earliest meeting.